Yes, then everybody, welcome back to the channel. It seems like John Murtough's been a busy little bee, and there's all sorts of stuff that we're going to wrap up. So we are going to touch on that little secret meeting. There's Greenwood stuff. There's a summer window. There's a Varane exit. There's all sorts of things going off that we're going to talk about. But get your questions in, get your comments in, and we will have a chat about all of that and more as we get through into this lot. So, what has John Murtough been doing, and why was Owen Hargreaves with him? I mean, feel free to speculate away on what you think is going on there with that one. But a bit of an interesting one, isn't it? Meeting Barcelona sporting director Deco as part of a general meeting. Supposedly they discussed nothing new. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean something was discussed previously? Meeting took place in Spain. Obviously, there was a couple of photographs leaked of them when they were doing it. Is he touting for a new job? Because I think he's one of the people that's clearly getting the bullet in the summer. And also, it's weird. It must be a weird situation being John Murtough because it's kind of known that you've bollocksed up the job that you're in, and there's an inevitability about the fact that you're going. The club is out here almost publicly courting all of your replacements, speculating on who's going to be brought in and this, that, and the other, and you're just sitting here like this. Yeah, cool. So is he out there for personal business? Is he out there for Manchester United business? Is he out there for Manchester United business in the knowledge that he's leaving? Because we've been in that situation before with Peter Kenyon. There was rumours that Peter Kenyon was fluffing some lines on the signings for Manchester United just before his move to Chelsea. Obviously it's up for somebody else to actually establish the facts of that, but that was the rumours. Is there some of that at foot? Maybe. What are you guys saying in the comments? Swap deal for Frankie. Oh, this again. Are we really doing the Frankie thing again? Keith says, afternoon, Steve. If it's about a swap for Greenwood, I imagine a swap deal given Barcelona's financial situation. Maybe we get Balde at centre left back. Sorry. Is that what people are saying? Swap deal for Frankie for Greenwood. Greenwood for De Jong. I'll tell you the person who'd be the happiest with that. Erik ten Hag. Erik ten Hag is and it would appear like it would be a bit of a backing of Erik ten Hag if they went and got Frankie de Jong, wouldn't it? Because, oh my God, has he been obsessed with that man in a big, big way, hasn't he? In a big, big way. What else is going on in the old world there? So Varane exit is concrete. David Mcdonnell from The Mirror says Varane exit. Raphael Varane is expected to leave United this summer, and Harry Maguire's future remains uncertain. Is that a good idea? I feel there was an inevitability about it. And I think that there's a requirement for United to bring in at least one centre half, at least. If not, you couldn't really make a case for two, couldn't you? Whether or not you're going to get two, world class sort of leaning or potential centre halves, or you get one, or you maybe bring in someone that's a little bit younger or older. You don't want to be signing two players that are like 26, peak of their career. You're going to have different profiles of player, I imagine, to make that work if you're going to bring in more than one. Maybe another Varane style signing. Someone towards the back end of their career, but looks like he's going. Where do we think he's going? I mean, let me know in the comments, where do you guys think he's going? Andrew says, I'd feel better about keeping Maguire over Varane now. Why? Amit says Varane, Maguire, Lindelof, all three need to go this summer. Alex says, who'd be my ideal centre-back signing? I've done a few videos where we've looked at the ideal centre-back. Maybe on the back of this news, we'll do the one to directly replace Varane. Tadibo is a good fit. There's plenty of good fits out there, in all honesty. Like, there's actually so many players that would come in and do jobs for United. So I'll probably update that one and do another one soon, because international break coming up soon anyway, innit? So it feels like it'd be a good idea to look at some potentials in there, because we always struggle a little bit with content during international break. So I think a short list of looking at who we could buy fits the build on it. Branthwaite's getting a lot of love. I think his Premier League experience probably gives him a little bit of an edge. The problem is, if you're buying from the Premier League, shit, man, people want 60, 70 million for players that have played in the Premier League. And you're like, well, I'd get 2 players if I went to Ligue 1 or Bundesliga for that sort of money. So I think the value is probably existing outside the Premier League. Daniel Riley says we need centre-halves with pace. Facts. Scott says definitely about the... He is definitely about the give Sancho a contract extension and get it in black and white for Greenwood to stay for another 5 years and give the middle finger as he walks out the door. I can imagine. Johnny Dare says Johnny Evans for another season. Yeah, but even Johnny Evans as like your 3rd or 4th choice, 4th or 5th choice is fine, but like you still need others. Otherwise, it ain't going to work. James says getting the wages under control has to be the main aim. Too many high wages for players who aren't or can't justify them. Well, I think Varane going sorts a bit of that. I think Casemiro will go as well, and I think it sorts a little bit of that. I think Sancho's a goner too, and there's best part of $1 million saved. Then you've got Anthony Martial will probably go. He's on serious wages. Donny van de Beek, I don't think it's on too crazy wages, but I'm pretty sure he's not going to be a Manchester United player come August next year. There's actually so many players who could go. It's just, can you get the right people in to replace them? And, are we going to see some youngsters given an opportunity like, Ahmad or Hannibal or somebody like that that's, surely more useful to us than Donny van de Beek has been in his time here. Notch says we need a squad of 50 the way they all keep getting injured. Can't really argue with that. Greg says exactly that. We need to stop paying 70 million on players and get 2 players for that price. It'd be helpful, wouldn't it? Because so many times we've done that with 130 million on Wan-Bissaka and Maguire looks so short-sighted now. You could have really made some dents into the squad with that at the time. Sergi says nice video on Thiago Motta, very informative. Would I take him if Ten Hag is gone over what other candidates you mentioned like Nagelsmann or Tuchel? I think Nagelsmann makes a lot of sense. I think he kind of brings a bit more gravitas to it than Motta. But I think INEOS are doing it quite methodically, and I think if INEOS identify Motta, it'll be for the right reasons, and they'll back him with the right kind of players. So I'm just open to seeing what happens. In all honesty, I hope they give Ten Hag the year. I hope they allow Ten Hag to see out this contract that he's under. And then, he's got, till Christmas probably to be able to convince them to extend beyond that. And that should be up to him. Hopefully they give him decent tools in the summer. If, they've got to have a realistic conversation with each other, and they've got to set in realistic targets. Like, can we see some remnants of the style of play by the start of next season, 6 weeks into next season? If we're not seeing it then, without like 4 or 5 catastrophic injuries happening to the squad, you've had another pre-season. Yes, there's going to be players on international break, but ultimately, these are the parameters you have to work with. The vast majority of the squad will be here next year, so you should be doing stuff in training right fucking now that's going to impact that next season. So I would expect with that amount of time, you can be able to put that in place. You've got from now 6 months. In the next 6 months, can we see a style of play begin to emerge? If we can, then maybe you can look at extending that deal. Sanjay says, any news come out regarding any revamp being done with the recruitment department? Not that I've seen just yet. Dan says, I want Varane to stay, get rid of Sancho, Maguire, Anthony, Martial, and Van der Beek. Dan says we need 11, Johnny Evans. Dylan says Varane's been our best centre-half this season, in my opinion. I think Johnny Evans has been in with a shout, but I understand what you're saying. I think Varane has been very good this year. The problem is, it always felt like this was just some sort of a box-ticking exercise for him, didn't it? Like, he's clearly played all of his career at Real Madrid. He was never a long-term option for Manchester United, so we've always got to go and find something more long-term. Andrew says, what's the thoughts on Ahmad's social media fuckery, changing all his images to Sunderland and saying he's done it as part of a break for Ramadan? I don't know. I don't know if maybe he deleted or deactivated his social media. Like, I've never done that, so I couldn't tell you. I think Maybe if he had pinned, because there's 3 images left. Maybe if you had pinned images, it didn't delete all of those. I don't fucking know. Here's what I will say. Who fucking cares? Ultimately, who cares? And Joe, what? If he's frustrated at the lack of playing time he's getting, so am I. I get it. I'm with him. Amit says squad is bloated, as Ollie pointed out in his interview. Look at Liverpool; they have a core of 15 players supported by youngsters. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't say the squad is necessarily bloated. I think you've just got a lot of players that are injured and not trustworthy to be able to pull on the shirt and play on a regular basis for you. James says, if we could get a Wirtz, should we go for him or make a plan for Ibrahimov to come through the ranks instead? That's a great question. I think signing a Wirtz would require a complete different style of play. I don't know if Mainoo's a sole single pivot player. And if you've got Wirtz and Bruno and Mainoo, you're not going to see a solid midfield. You're going to have to massively upgrade the defence. You might have to invert your fullbacks and change your whole fullback game up to be able to accommodate that sort of midfield. You could do it, and Wirtz is a serious player. I think he's a fantastic footballer. Like, genuinely, like if I could say where I think Wirtz would actually go and play his best football, it would be City. Because I think he's just everything that Kevin De Bruyne is. And I think you would allow Kevin De Bruyne to move on this season, which I get a vibe that he's going to, do you? And you bring Wirtz in and you just keep doing whatever Kevin De Bruyne did in a City shirt with this little blonde kid. Joel says Frimpong's still a viable option because he's been brilliant this season. Frimpong's interesting, isn't it? Because he's not a right back, right? He's a right back, but no fucking way is he a right back. He is a right winger. And the shape that you see Alonso employ with Leverkusen is a 3-2-5, essentially. So you're talking about a fullback that is literally playing as a winger, a dribbling winger. There is very little defensive responsibility into him. You look at his heat map, he is just all action in the opposition final third. That requires a shift to... You might be able to get away with it with Luke Shaw, to be honest. But if you had Luke Shaw alongside Martinez, maybe we have looked at some centre-halves who played right back and sort of right side centre-back. You could do it, but then you're going to need 2 very disciplined pivots. So you could do that. But again, it requires having a plan, because I think... The previous question was, what if we sign Wirtz? And here's the problem. And I think this has been the problem at United for the last decade. We've just signed all the shiny things. Wirtz is a shiny thing. Frimpong is a shiny thing. There's plenty of other shiny things all over the place. But you've got to think about how they fit and blend together and to create a football team. If you sign Frimpong, then signing Wirtz makes fuck all sense. Unless you're going to get rid of Bruno, which I don't think they're going to do. So if you want those players, I don't think they can necessarily play in the same Manchester United team because of the situation being what it is, because of the other players already filling some positions that they've got at Manchester United. So I think it would be a complete fantasy to sign both of those. I think you could maybe work towards, you get one now and you get one in a couple of years, maybe, once you've rejigged other positions around to accommodate it. I think signing both of those in one window would seriously unbalance us. I think if you're going to bring in somebody like a Frimpong, you have to have 2 very defensive-minded midfielders to give you 5 attack and 5 in defence. Liam says, be nice to see us move away from buying players that are the current flavour. Be nice to see us buy some unknowns that suit a system that we want to move forward with. It's exactly the same sort of thing that Ollie was talking about the other day, isn't it? Like, he's seen and identified good players. Maybe he had a system in mind for them as well, but, through Rice, through Bellingham, through Haaland. You imagine if you had Rice, Bellingham and Haaland at Manchester United for the last 5 years. Do you think things would have been as bad? Andrew says Johnny Evans deserves another year's contract so he can actually have the semi-retired season he thought he was signing up for this year. Yeah. Raj says, Motta video is informative, but still Ten Hag could do all of the tactical stuff with a proper squad and obedient players. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, in all honesty. I don't necessarily disagree with that. And actually, if you go back and look at some of the stuff we was doing, bringing Ten Hag to Manchester United, there's a lot of similarities between him and Motta and the system that they play, for sure. Notch says, Verts is only 20. Any chance to bring him in and slowly to eventually replace Bruno, who's turning 30? On one hand, yes, because I think that would be a real sensible use of doing it. On the other hand, that's a player that you're going to ask to come out of playing Champions League football, or potentially playing Champions League football, and now potentially not play Champions League football, or potentially only play like Champions League group stage football at the beck and call of Bruno playing ahead of you. A player who, by the way, isn't injured and never needs a rest. So asking someone to rotate with a player that plays every single game is hard work, isn't it? Especially when I think the other offer on the table might be go to City and potentially win everything. So you'd have to really sell him the dream. Really sell him the dream to be able to make him come and do that. Or you'd have to make a serious decision. Sometimes these decisions are required. Sometimes you've got players who might be holding the club back. And I don't necessarily think that's the case with Bruno or Rashford. There is obviously a narrative going around about those two being that thing. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but there is a narrative that's out there that's suggesting that sort of thing. But you do see it sometimes where one player has to leave in order for the team to be able to thrive and grow and hit the next evolution. That happened with Liverpool. They got rid of Coutinho and everyone was like, how the fuck are you going to be a better team without Coutinho in it? And then they come up with a system that wouldn't have fit Coutinho playing in it. So it's hard to project what that will be without knowing which player it'll be that will be sacrificed to make that happen. What are you going to do in Mason Mount and Wirtz? Well, yeah, I mean, Mason Mount was the most fucking pointless signing we've had in how long? How many games he actually ran out for us? Is it even fucking 10? Could I see Martinez playing defensive midfield? He's capable of doing it, but no, I don't think so. Unless you're going to move him into that sort of Stones role where he's going to be a bit of a hybrid, then I think he could potentially do that. 5-4 Duncan says Leverkusen could be poached to high heaven this summer if Alonso goes. That's very interesting. I bet this player's stalling on signing new contracts with Leverkusen because they'll be like, wait, this season's gone fucking mega and we might win the league. It's not in the bag. We might win the league. They probably will win the league from this point in, I would think. But they'll all be sitting there saying, wait, we've all fucking seen the news. The gaffer is getting touted with about 4 different jobs a week. And if they lose the gaffer, you could replace the gaffer, keep the core of the squad and carry on the momentum if you got the right appointment. But if they lose the gaffer and then they lost a Frimpong and a Wirtz and maybe 1 or 2 others, that fucking team is going to struggle to finish top 6 if it lost like 3 or 4 players and the gaffer. That team will absolutely fucking implode. And from a selfish point of view, if you're a player, if you're Jeremy Frimpong, for example, that is getting linked with moves to the Premier League, grew up over it, you've got all of those links happening constantly about what's going to happen, where things are going to go. You might be getting moves to the Premier League. You might be best off being the first out the door rather than the last one still sitting there as fucking Leverkusen are approaching like 10th in the table and everybody else fucking bailed out before you. Chima says we need to start signing players from the Premier League. Wait. I'm going to be honest with you, mate. I don't necessarily disagree because I do think signing players that have already proven successful in your league is a fantastic strategy. And I think when you look at some of the most successful transfers in United's history, they've probably been that. When you look at some of the most successful transfers in other leagues, you think about Lewandowski going from Dortmund to Bayern. It's a pretty successful transfer domestically. You see Ramos going from Seville to Real Madrid. Incredible. Dani Alves, I think, did the exact same thing. Mbappe going from Monaco to Paris. I think there's a lot to be said from domestic transfers within leagues. Pirlo going to every single fucking club in Italy, basically. I think there's a lot to be said for if you're good in that league, you can be good for any team in that league. I think that's a thing. But when you look at United's history of doing that more recently, from Wan-Bissaka through Maguire to Mount, it's not really done well for us, has it? Not really been our best ever sort of period for signing people. Now, maybe that's different with a new structuring. But the thing for me is that we seem to get our asses handed to us when we try and sign people from within the Premier League. I think that's the bad thing for us, is that we really fucking struggle to get any value for money. And there is certainly more value in signing players from abroad by magnitudes. And FFP is a real problem for United. So I don't think, if you ring Everton up for Branthwaite, I think they'll tell you 75 mil with a straight face, which is fucking bananas. But I think that's what would be happening, in all honesty. I think that would be a fucking bad drama for us, in all honesty. James says, for all the fantasy signings we want to make, we also have to consider the homegrown quota too. Well, that's the interesting thing. Is it like Haaland would have been considered homegrown? Obviously, Rice and Bellingham, those signings all would have been homegrown players. I think Jeremy Frimpong counts as homegrown. Ash says, Rooney, last good player we bought domestically. Wait, what? No. About Michael Carrick, for one, you fucking absolute savage. Dimitar Berbatov, I don't necessarily think that was a failure. Robin Van Persie, what about him? We talk about him? We're not going to talk about him. Or should we talk about him? I don't know. Is winning the league considered a success? I would consider that a success, I'll be honest with you. Antonio Valencia, that was a domestic signing. I think he did pretty fucking well for the money that we paid for him as well. Come on, man. I've had loads of fucking good signings domestically since 2004. Knight says, what do I think of João Neves? Too expensive and not physical enough for the Prem. We will talk about him because there is a scout report to be had on him, for sure. Olivia says, have I seen any of the videos of Sam Mather playing? The kid is class. Yeah, I mean, that entire squad at the moment is doing a bit of a madness and doing well. So, there's some of those that you would hope can break in. It's rare to see more than a couple, but, maybe we do, yeah. And Andrew says Van der Sar, absolutely. Ashley Young, absolutely not. Apner says, Championship signings can save us some money. Yeah, I don't think I think people are starting to realise that the Championship is a fucking serious league. A serious league. And I think if you look at some of the players that have done, like Ivan Toney, he did it in the Championship, and people were quite rightly pointing out, Jesus, look how fucking good he is. And they're like, yeah, let's see if we can do it in the Prem. Comes to the Prem, delivers consistently in the Prem, multiple years. People are like, oh yeah, it was pretty good. Jack Grealish, same thing. You see him carving it up for Aston Villa. Can he do it in the Prem? Yeah, he can do it in the Prem, and he can do it in a shit Aston Villa team as well. Now, going to Manchester City, his style of play doesn't really suit their style of play. I still think he's a fucking bloody effective player for Manchester City and as a Premier League footballer, but maybe that team doesn't quite suit his style of play. I don't think that takes anything away from his ability in the Championship. And then, of course, you have the likes of Jude Bellingham. You can do it in the Championship, you can do it anywhere, and especially if you're doing it at 16, 17. Madness. Partib says, would I sell Rashford and Shaw, and why not? So, you already preempted my answer, which you were correct on, but you did preempt my answer. Will I sell Rashford and Shaw, and why not? Well, partial homegrown status, which is required for European competition. Also because I don't necessarily think you would get enough to over-exceed what you're replacing them. Like, I don't think you make once you sell them and bring in a replacement that is equal or better to them, I don't think you have any money left, so I don't think you make a profit from it at all. Arnaud with a super chat says, the front office will decide the style and handle the recruitment. Don't we really need a great man manager, and who could that be? Fuck knows. No, you do need a tactician as well as a great man manager, and I think that's why Steve McLaren's in there. Because it does sound like Ten Hag is a little bit on the colder side when it comes to how he converses with some of the players, it might be said. But people fucking crying out for a disciplinarian. Now you want someone to give everyone a fucking cuddle. Make your minds up. People are just trying to flip-flop from one thing to the other. Let's pick one thing and fucking see it through. Patience is a non-existent fucking virtue in 2024, isn't it? Like, some things just have to run their fucking courses. Akshay says, scout video on Scalvini. Would love your thoughts. Let's write them down and let's have a look. Notch says, Ashley Young waited until he played us on Sunday to finally find a colleague's head with a cross. Daniel says, plenty of good players on the current squad. They just don't fit Ten Hag's system. Depth is the biggest issue. Some of the big names should be considered for sale. Don't see how Rashford fits. Really? Dan Fenton says, Southgate, no way. Yeah, I'm all aboard that train. Abner says, Brian, jokes aside, the idea is to pick young players in the Championship before Brighton doesn't make them a big asset. There's no point throwing Championship level as a way to downplay the teams. No, there's a lot of... If you can play well in the Championship, there's the potential that you can play well in the Premier League, because I don't think the speed is too much different. I just think there's an extra level of quality, an extra level of reading, an extra level of touch, and I think... I bet if you laid them side by side, the Championship and the Premier League would have massive overlap in terms of like where players land. It's only at the very top end, your Champions League and your title sort of challenging sides, where you would see players that are doing things that look out of this world. A lot of players could go from mid-table Championship to mid-table Premier League. A hell of a lot. And vice versa, without looking completely out of place in a good or in a bad way. It's the ones at the very, 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 very top of the tree. You know, the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, the likes of Rodri, the likes of Martinez, you know, the likes of a Salah or a Haaland or an Odegaard or something like that. Those are the players where they're going to stand out all day long. There's a lot of ordinary players, though, that, you know, with a good touch and a good attitude will carry them right into the Premier League a lot. And also a lot that could end up in the Championship because they just didn't get noticed, or their face didn't fit, or they sulked at the wrong fucking time once. BRD Zuna says, we need Inzaghi. He knows how to make a great meal out of scraps. Last year he got to the Champions League final with Onana in goal. Wait, like Onana's a problem for getting someone up there. He's already won Serie A with Mkhitaryan, Alexis Sanchez and Darmian in his team. I think that says more about the quality of Italian football than anything else at the moment. No, I don't think Italian football is in any sort of vintage year at the moment. But I also don't think that football on the whole is in a vintage era at the moment. I think Inzaghi might be on people's lists, but I think and sometimes it's possible to go far in European competition. He might be a genuinely great manager, because that's sometimes where you see a great manager arrive. But at the moment, I think it's a bit too early to sort of suggest. I think that I don't think there was as quite shocking as what we saw with Ten Hag or with Porto and Mourinho and some of the other ones that we've seen like that. Caleb says, we got the Chelsea route? I mean, go the Chelsea route and swap managers, or try and build another Fergie-like dynasty? Well, I would hope it's in our DNA to try and find another Busby, to try and find another Fergie, because that's who we are. Those two men between them basically is like over a third of our club's history, which is nuts. Two fellas, isn't it? In the meantime, Chelsea go for a manager about every 9 months. Anywho, Jed's Dead Baby says, Italian football made Smalling look like Baresi. Not vintage. Let's being as kind as we can, let's just say Italian football not in a vintage year. And on this as well, I was debating making a video about the fucking expectations of this England team, with there being an international break around the corner. And people was like, oh, the 2002 vintage England team, this is your... I think it was Gary Neville. Your Neville, Cole, Ferdinand and Terry. Lampard, Gerrard, Scholes all playing central midfield with David Beckham. Rooney and Owen up front. That team, that photo that you see all the fucking time. Why didn't that team win something? Who did it lose to? It lost to a Brazil team which had fucking Cafu, Roberto Carlos, R9, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo. Do you know what I mean? When you look at the fucking Brazil team now, it's like Vinicius and Martinelli and meh, innit? It's fucking rubbish. Brazil was just always just a who's who of absolute Ballon d'Or winners when I was growing up, and now it's just fucking meh. And then you look at the Italian team of the time as well. Maldini, Cannavaro, Del Piero. Ridiculous. Just ridiculous. And then, who else was good at the time? France would have had Vieira, Henry. Who else would they have had at the time? Zidane. Like, why didn't England win stuff? Well, it was a vintage England team, yeah. It was the golden generation England team. It was also the golden generation for about 4 other nations. And off the top of my head, I can't remember what Germany was. I feel like Germany might have been a bit shit at the time. But there was a lot of teams having a bit of a golden age. Whereas now, this England team, yeah, there's some genuine talent in this England team. Led by a fucking helmet of a manager. But, like, the competition just is not there, is it? That's all. So anyway, I might do that. I might have a look into that. Why didn't the golden generation... Also, by the way, England were trying to play 4-4-2. Which after about 2001, once Rude joined United had stopped playing 4-4-2. And we were still trying to play 4-4-2 with England. Sven was still trying to play 4-4-2 with England. And you were just getting fucking done by more technical sides. And also, a midfield... Right, you play 4-4-2. You're going to ask a lot of your midfield too, especially if you play with true wingers. So you play with true wingers. So David Beckham was more of a right midfielder than a true winger, which allowed United to have a bit of an asymmetric attack. Beckham's going to tuck in. He's going to do a lot of defending. Giggs is going to be off like a current wide forward. Certainly at that time in his career, at least. Anyway, talking about the 99 side. Your midfield two, Keane and Scholes. And Scholes gets no credit for being able to play in a fucking 2, right? Which is think about this at the moment, right? That is a hard thing to do, to play in a 2. You see people playing a 2 now and both sitting real deep. You look at what we was talking about earlier, the way Mainoo's operating on his fucking own in midfield because no one's there. Well, there was only 2 of them for that 99 team, and we was able to dominate because that's how good Keane and Scholes were. So Lampard didn't really play in a 2. Chelsea played a 3. And Liverpool didn't really play in a 2 at that time either. They played a 3. So we're going to play 2 midfielders who play as part of a 3, as the most attacking in that 3 in both of the teams that they play in. We're going to play both of those as a pair of midfielders. Which one of them is going to be asked to do the defensive covering? Oh, neither of them. Right, cool. And then Paul Scholes, not necessarily known for his defensive discipline, is going to be played over on the left-hand side. Right. No fucking wonder you didn't win anything. No fucking wonder. If you'd have put in just a defensive-minded midfielder, latterly that should have been a Carrick or a Hargreaves, or arguably both if you're playing a 3. Or even like a fucking Scott Parker, or just someone that can sit and hold and protect. Do the Makalele role. Makalele was another one for France, wasn't he? Fucking hell. Like, just do that. But no. We play 4-4 fucking 2, and you get run over. Why don't we win anything? Tactical fucking naivety. Anyway, cheers for tuning in. Already got a super chat there that I've got to do. Akshay says, we need players who have steel and legs. Mainly is class, but would love to see him like a Sarr or a Basuma next to him who can cover ground. Agreed. Yeah, I think you have to, like, it's the same old, isn't it? You got to identify what the structure is that you're going to play, and then you select players alongside that. And on that note, I am out of here. Cheers for tuning in. Take it easy. Hit subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye-bye. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra